This clip is brought to you by SaveWithConrad.com.
And, we're talking about all things Arn Anderson in 85. How did the missus take to your interesting lifestyle, your interesting way of life? Is she making these shows with you? Are you keeping her at home? Is she developing friendships with some of the other wrestlers or some of the other wrestler wives?
Well, in those days, guys were, most of them who had came to Charlotte were getting apartments. They weren't buying homes yet. It was one of those deals that if you didn't know now, I have to go back and check the records yet, but we hadn't gotten our first apartment in Charlotte yet together, something that would be livable for Aaron and I. So most guys were getting apartments with a 6-month lease, because the fact was every single day up and back, you would drive to the towns. Nobody would stay over. It doesn't matter how late, because the only way to get your money in order is you had to have one single place to live and you had to commute back and forth unless it warranted a plane ticket, which the office paid for anyway. But, when you're driving back and forth in the territories, even though it might be 340 miles each way, you wouldn't stay over because now you're paying for 2 places and you want to get back to see your girlfriend or your wife or whatever that may be. You're back and forth. The time you would spend with, if you already had children or your family or your wife or your girlfriend, would be from, probably 9 or 10 in the morning until you would leave for the town, which would usually be anywhere between 2:00 and 4:00. So that was your time you got to spend together. Plus you had to get to the gym and work out on top of that, and any errands that you had to run. That's what you did. It was crowding a lot of family time into a very short time. And it was hard.
Such an interesting life that you guys have lived together, and what a success story. There's not a lot of wrestling marriages that can make it from 85 to 2021. It's a short list. You could probably count it on one hand, right, Arn?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. And the fact was, you were taken, it was just like Aaron. I took her, out of Pensacola and brought her to a new place. She had never, lived anywhere except her mom's home. And now she's got to be the head of the household, and she's got to do all those things, pay bills and, everything that the head of the household does, because all we had time to do in those days, literally, and this was not a misuse of time, but you had time to get up, get to the gym, because that was mandatory. That was every day. Get to the gym and then travel to the town, wrestle, and then travel back and do it all, all over again the next day. And the wives, if you were on the road and the dishwasher blew up or something broke or whatever the deal was, the car broke down, they had to figure out a way to do it. And there weren't cell phones back then. You couldn't just pick up, the cell phone and go, hey, I'm stuck over here on South Boulevard and the car's broke down. What do I do? It put a lot of responsibility on the wives. They are the unsung heroes, or girlfriends for that matter, whoever was, the head of the household. They had a lot to do in those days, and they didn't have a lot of help. Thank God AAA came along, and you could at least, if you broke down, contact somebody to come help you. Because, a lot of people didn't get phones, when they first got to town, because there was a lot of bills when you moved to a place for the first time in a different state. You got to pay to get your water cut on. You got to pay to get your electric bill cut on. You got all these things. If you didn't bring furniture with you, like us, I had never bought furniture before.
Right.
That's things that people never think about. I showed up in Charlotte with my clothes, about $500-600 in my pocket, and and my vehicle, and that was about it. And you had to add everything once you got there.
Talk to me a little bit about, how communication was back then. I know this seems silly, but in 85, there weren't cell phones. I mean, unless you're like Gordon Gekko or something.
Right.
So do you have some sort of routine where as soon as you get to the hotel you're going to, you check in and call the wife, or after the matches, you hit a gas station, pick up a 6-pack and throw a couple quarters in the payphone? What does that look like? Because I'm sure you've got a wife pacing the floor. Where is he? Is he okay? Is he hurt? Is he safe? Was there a car wreck? I mean, there's a lot of concerns for, well, not just a young wife, any wife.
Well, you would learn, before Aaron got there, I, made a lot of towns and a lot of trips and the drivable ones out of Charlotte. But, after you had made one once or twice, and remember, those were weekly, bi-weekly shows, some of them, I knew exactly how long it would take door to door to drive to, say, Greenville, South Carolina and back. And you would just tell them before you left, hey, I'll be back at 1:00, around 1:00, because you knew how long that trip took. And that included a beer stop, and that included any stops that you might have to make. If it was a longer trip, and you would basically just communicate that, hey, I'll be home about this time. And you got it down to a science to where you would be home at about that time. That was easy to measure. As far as those type drives, occasionally there would be, something where a guy would break down, and that's why it was so important. It was like a standard rule in the business. If you're going down the road and you see a car on the side of the road broke down, you slowed down for every single car to look, almost if you had to come to a stop to see who was in that car to make sure it wasn't one of the boys. And that was just a standard rule. You looked after each other that way. And that was kind of the only fail safe that we had. There were no cell phones, like you said, and all that. There was no communication. It was just before I left, hey, I'll be back. And then when you would get to the town that night, if you were going to hook up with somebody else, the next night to ride, you would say, hey, I'll meet you over on Billy Graham at a certain time.
Let my family save your family some cash. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket, but we will save you money. It's not a matter if, it's a matter of how much. SaveWithConrad.com. Well, I got to ask, and this is what everybody wants to know, going back to our old format of the show. What's your go-to Red Lobster meal?
I want to say a broiled fisherman's platter.
Get ready. Red Lobster's building a seafood lover's dream. Starting with broiled Icelandic lobster, deep sea scallops, shrimp, fillet of fish, and deviled crab. That's right, all on one plate. Red Lobster's broiled fisherman's platter. It's not a dream. You seafood lover, you. Oh, wait till you taste it.
Red Lobster for the seafood lover in you.
Okay.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.